So good morning, everyone. And in Chiang Mai, we would say Sawadika. Thank you for coming to our city, the great city of Thailand, that I think everyone would wish in his or her lifetime to visit once. So thank God that you all be here, and welcome Mimi also, the late joiner. We had a great Sunday worship service at our church yesterday, preached by Pastor Gerard, and he brought a lot of laugh and good time to all of us. I think we laughed that loud the first time of the year. We are so quiet and so reserved, and then when you started the game, like woo, woo, and oh, there's so many woos. I like that game very much. So this course is called Advanced Research Methodology. It will take about 42 credit hours, but I made it in a condensed and simplified version that we will try to cover as much as possible this morning. And I hope that you would enjoy my teaching, and it will not spoil your stay in Chiang Mai. Nobody would want to come to Chiang Mai to listen to research methodology class. There are two types, I think, of teacher in this world. First one is the teacher who make a difficult subject easy to understand. And another type is to make an easy subject so difficult to understand. You may have come across these two types of teachers. The first one would probably create a lot of wow. People would say, wow, he's so knowledgeable. He's so great. We know exactly what he is talking about. But the problem is that nobody understands such a wow. And create a good impression by making things difficult for everyone. But the second time is to make a difficult subject easy to understand. And that you won't get any wow. People tend to take him for granted. But anyway, later on, the student would appreciate that he can understand almost everything he said. By the end of the class, I would give you the opportunity to evaluate my teaching, whether I would be the first type of teacher, make things difficult, or make things easy for you. Okay. Every graduate school in the world, all over the world, would make the research methodology class compulsory. They call it a required course, which means if you want to graduate in that program, you have to pass this course. This course is intended to help the students to prepare themselves to write a good thesis, which is mostly part of the graduate program anyway. At King's College, the research methodology is a required course. But I was talking with Pastor Gerard yesterday that perhaps we can offer another route. We call it a non-thesis track, that you don't have to write a thesis, but you take 4 more courses, 4 more coursework, and then you will be entitled to graduate for a master degree in theology. I like to start with a very basic and simple question. What is research? What do you think research is about? Many times we use the word research, but it is not a research in the strict sense of the term. For example, when you browse the internet, try to find good hotels in Chiang Mai, that is not research. It's search. You may search, for the good hotel in Chiang. So in simplest term, research is a process of seeking out knowledge systematically and scientifically. This knowledge can be new, or it can support the already known facts. Once the new knowledge has been accumulated enough for a long period of time, it would become what we call a body of knowledge in different fields. So research would add up to the existing body of knowledge for one thing, and also it would help in other areas. So when we divide research in many different types, and then you see the purpose of each type of research. The purpose of research is to inform, explain, or predict about certain phenomena based on the collected and analyzed data. It may not be the best definition, but if you think along this line, I think you understand what research is. I have prepared a lot in writing, but I cannot read right now because my handwriting is so difficult to read, and also the letter is too small for my eyesight. So I would use the slide presentation instead. Throughout history, people have acquired knowledge in various ways. We call it approaches to knowledge. Scientific research is not the only way that people use to find new knowledge. There are three, at least, general modes of inquiry that people use for that purpose. I like to call it the authoritarian mode, the mystical mode, and the rationalistic mode of inquiries. Authoritarian mode, what does it mean? It means that people seek knowledge by referring to individuals who are recognized as a qualified producers of knowledge. It could be a tribal chief if you live in a tribal society. It could be archbishop if you live in a theocratic society. It could be king if you live in a monarchical society. It could be scientist if you live in a technocratic society. For example, during the pandemic, we want answer, but we don't know where to go to. Who would give us the correct answer? What is this pandemic about? What can we do about it? Would the vaccine help or not help at all? Would the vaccine harm us in the long term? We never know. Whom should you go to and ask such a question? Of course, you cannot do research by yourself. It will take so long, and then the situation is so present at that moment. So we would rely on the authority in that subject. It could be the Ministry of Public Health, the CDC, so-and-so doctors, so-and-so research institute. Once they give the answer, people tend to believe that that is the truth, that is the fact, that is the answer that we are looking for. Would it be correct or not correct? We have to wait and see. You see, vaccine, I took 2 shots of vaccine. It doesn't seem to help me very much. I came down with very strong COVID, and people say that if you contracted COVID, it doesn't matter. The symptom would be just not to worry about. It's very small. You won't be hospitalized. I had to be in the ICU of Chiang Mai Hospital for 14 days, and it is very, very, very scary. They put you in a pressurized negative pressure room, no windows. I cannot see anyone, no visitors, only me and the bed. And then I thought, oh my goodness, my 2 shots of vaccine didn't help me at all. That authoritarian mode is wrong, and then the things, Pastor Gerard didn't take any shot. But he told me that would also give him a hard time, living in Singapore at that time. So this is the authority. Go to the authority. Simple as that. The second one is interesting. It's called the mystical mode. The producer of knowledge, seems to have some mysterious way of explaining the answer to you. He or she may claim to have a special power, mysterious power that nobody can access, and then they would give you an answer. For example, if a young lady would like to know that the boy who is going steady with her would be the soulmate. Whom should she go to? Who would be the authority in this subject? Normally they would go to fortune teller. Very popular in Thailand. Of course, not among the Christians. Next to the house, 2 houses beyond my house, lived a lady who is a fortune teller. And what she would do, she has some certain kind of card. In Thai we call it the gypsy card. I don't know in the English word, but by reading that card, he can tell you the answer in life that you want to have. And she would come to my house and tell me that, Preecha, this tree is not good for you. You should chop it down. And you should grow another tree because this tree would bring, bad luck. See that house? The couple just divorced and they went bankrupted because they have that tree in the house. But so I told her that I'm a Christian. I don't believe in astrology. I don't believe in fortune telling. And our relationship stopped from that point. And we rarely spoke to each other until I have the new girl to come and help Anjali to take care of Anjali. They develop good friendship, exchanging food, sometimes supper. But I told her that beware of the fortune teller. The mystical mode of inquiry is not, it's not guaranteed. And as the society progresses or advanced, the popularity of this type of knowledge producing is decreasing. The third one is interesting. They call it the rationalistic mode, or sometimes they call it the Aristotelian deduction. You get the answer, or you obtain a new knowledge through the form of logic. You see, and then they claim that knowledge is already exists even before time. They exist a priori. They exist independent of our experience. You would be able to get this type of knowledge only through logic. Have you ever studied logic before? Yes? Yes. Wow, that's very good. I have never had one, but I had philosophy 101 when I was first year student in Bangkok 50 years ago. And I still remember what the professor said. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I stop this? Put it off, please. I'm sorry, I forgot. The professor of philosophy told me at that time that you can obtain any knowledge or new knowledge through logic. I'm gonna please turn it off.
Yes.
I don't really believe what he said, but he gave an example that I can still remember. He said that you would have to have what we call a major premise. If the major premise is right, and then the deduction from that premise will also be right. The example that he gave me is that, say, all men are mortal. Have you ever heard of this? John is a man, so John is mortal. It means that if all men die, John someday will die. It can be wrong only that the premise is wrong. That not all men are mortal. See, later on when I studied the Bible, I came across some character in the Bible who didn't die. You see, Enoch, for instance. So that it could be that some of us who are sitting in this room may not die because the major premise is wrong. But anyway, the rationalist believe that all knowledge can be obtained by strict adherence to the forms of logic.
Fingerprints.
He gave another example like mathematics. You see, mathematics is independent of our experience. Mathematical statements is always true, provided that it is logical and follow the sequences of the logic. You see, like geometry, the proportion of the circumference and the diameters is always true. 22 to 7, no matter how small or how large the circle. This is independent of our experience. It is already there, and the way to obtain such a knowledge is through the form of rationalism, rationalistic deduction, mode of inquiry. Okay, here comes the present one. We call it the scientific mode. Knowledge is obtained through scientific method. I have studied about scientific method before. Scientific method can be broken down into the following steps. First, observation. You gather information from certain aspect of the natural world. I like to use an example. Perhaps that would help us to understand better the scientific method of doing so. For example, this morning you are at home and then you want to cook rice. You plug your rice cooker, and the rice cooker doesn't cook rice for you. You wait for 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. The cooker is still cold. When you place your hand over it, you observe nothing changes. And then you know exactly that you won't be able to get rice cooked in that cooker. So you observe, you notice something that it is wrong, it is not as usual anymore. Then what do? You ask question, why is that okay? Why my rice cooker is not working? And according to your observation, you ask question. You don't ask any question you like, but you ask question related to your observation. And after that, you form a hypothesis. What is hypothesis? Sometimes I say research comprises of 2 words, re and search. You search again and again until you find the answer. Hypothesis comprises of 2 words. Hypo. What does hypo mean? hypertension, hypoglycemia, what? Hypothyroidism, hypo mean low, hyper mean high. If you have hypertension, you have low blood pressure. If you have hypertension, you have high blood pressure. So hypo is low. This is the proposition that you want to propose to the academic community at large. So this is not high enough to be presented to anyone. It requires testing, in other words. So you form a hypothesis. You try to explain how or why your rice cooker is not cooking. Hypothesis can be an assumption rather than fact. You see. And then you predict from your hypothesis. You can predict if you change outlet, you plug in your rice cooker to another outlet, it might work. And then that is called a prediction. You predict. It would be as you predict or not, we never know unless you try. You try to plug in rice cooker at other outlet. It's called the hypothesis testing or prediction testing. So let's say if you switch to other outlet and the rice cooker cook, can you conclude that your hypothesis is right? Your first hypothesis that the outlet is broken, so we change to another outlet, it is working. What if you change to the second outlet and your rice cooker is still not cooking? What would you do? What would you think? Maybe the rice cooker itself is broken, right? So that you form another hypothesis. When the first hypothesis is rejected, the researcher will have to form another hypothesis. See, I think when you do research, if you have a strong theory or a strong knowledge on the subject, it would help a lot in terms of formulating hypotheses. For example, if you know something about electricity, or if you are an electrician, you would think differently because you have certain knowledge. See, if you have tools, if you have an equipment, you see, sometimes they have a screwdriver that you can put it in, stick it into the electrical outlet, and the light shows up. Wow, that outlet is good. You may want to try that first, even before forming the hypothesis. You see, the tools help a lot in doing research. And the tools that we are talking about right now is the statistics. See, in this course, there are two parts. The first part is the methodology. It would teach you how to do research step by step. The second part is the statistics, and that would help in terms of data analysis. When you have collected enough data, you need some tool to take care of that data that you have got. Yes. See, or if you have another tool, which they call it an ohmmeter, that you can check if the electricity circuit is broken. So this tool is very simple, and then you can know the answer almost right away. Without the knowledge of electricity, without the proper tools, you have to go through a lengthy process in doing research. Which to the second outlet still not working, and then maybe you try to plug in the toaster or the fan. If the fan is working, and then you can conclude that your rice cooker is faulty, things like that. If all of those works, you would think perhaps you don't have electricity in our house. You see, you go to the main switch and see if the fuse is broken, and the fuse is okay. You look at other house, they all didn't have any electricity in the house. You can conclude that there was a power failure. Like we went to the restaurant and all restaurant closed because of the power failure. But if you look at the next door neighbor and they have electricity, only your house doesn't have electricity. It's another story. But you may not pay the bill and the electricity cut off. Electricity just for your particular house. You see. So all of this is the scientific method. You try to find the answer through the scientific method. It's not the deduction. It's the collecting of data from your observation. The opposite of deduction is called induction. See, I was told a story once. There was a Catholic priest. In a Catholic temple, they call it temple, monastery. Okay. They would have a learning hall. Every morning, perhaps from 9 to 12, like us, they have to learn something. That academic gown that we are using, the black one, and the hood and everything, is came from the Catholic tradition, learning tradition. So I was told a story. I don't know whether it's true or not, but this is interesting way to understand this type of approaches to knowledge that we are talking about. Why the Catholic priests were learning, and then someone just wanted to know how many teeth does a horse have. This is the knowledge that they want to obtain. But how can you acquire such a knowledge? How many teeth does a horse have? If you use rationalistic mode, you would say that, well, horse has 4 legs and with a hook. And it so happened that if you know certain animal that has 4 legs and also has a hook, you know how many teeth that animal have, and then you can conclude that horse will have the same number of teeth as that animal. That is the only approach to knowledge that they have at that time. So they spend time over and over trying to think of the animal, this animal, we don't know this animal, we don't know how many teeth we have. There's one Catholic priest just raised his hand and said, wow, if you want to know how many teeth does a horse have, why don't you just go out and open the mouth of the horse and count everyone of them? You know what happened to that priest? They literally throw him out of the learning hall. It's so unorthodox. It's so unimaginable. What are you talking about? We never thought that way. That is the starting point of the scientific method that we are now using. We collect data, open the mouth of the horse and start counting. And then you're not sure, open the second horse, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. And then after you have collected enough data or evidence, you can conclude how many teeth does the horse have. 44. What's that? 36 to 44. That's what Google says. 36 to 44. You see, how many teeth human being? How many teeth do you think that human being have? You can't remember. How many? 32. How do you know it's 32? Have you ever counted your teeth? The dentist say, you see, you rely on the authoritarian mode. We trust that the dentist know best. So if they say that we all have 32 teeth, we believe him right away. It may be true or it may not be true. You see, if you're a scientist, you have to count. You have to count. But we don't have the scientific mind. We tend to put our trust, on someone who is the authority of that subject. In this case, it's the dentist.
You can count your dentures on your denture, how many you have.
Denture is man-made. All right. Okay. And then after you complete this whole cycle of investigation, you probably want to look back the whole process, looking for any flaws that you may have and try to correct. And if the hypothesis is rejected, you have to form a new one. You see, in research, it doesn't matter if the hypothesis is rejected, but you cannot produce knowledge by having a research work that all of the hypotheses are rejected all the time. It won't give you any benefit of that. In a nutshell, research is a process of searching for answers in a systematic way through scientific methods with the purposes of describing, explaining, and predicting. And this answer you receive from the research will be added to the existing body of knowledge, which in turn will benefit the society and the development of science and mankind. Let me see. A long time ago, I was walking in the street of Tokyo aimlessly, which the Japanese never do that. They are very purposeful people. They walk and they fast and they seem to be going somewhere. But for us, I just enjoy watching the street of Tokyo. I found myself standing in front of the Sony building. That was quite a long time ago, 30, 40 years ago. And in front of the building, there was a big electronic sign saying, research makes the difference. Mm-hmm. So I went into the building. They let you play with any, electronic devices in their building. You can listen to any radio in the world. That 40 years ago, it was very, very, very advanced technology. Research makes the difference means that research makes Sony product different from other products or better than other products. Right now, it's not the case anymore because many companies, Samsung, put a lot of money and emphasis on research. So that struck me. Research. I myself used to work with the National Research Council in Bangkok for 6 years before moving to Chiang Mai and joined Chiang Mai University. At that time, I trained researchers with many different organizations, including university, would send people to study research methodology. We have a 4 months course equivalent to a 42 degree of the course offered in university. But we put a lot of emphasis on hands-on experience, the fieldwork experience. You have to learn things by doing things. Learning by doing is the key. to almost everything, including research. If you study research methodology and you have never done research in your life, you may get an A, grade, but it won't help. It won't help. Wise man of the East once said that the essence of knowledge is having it to apply. So you have to be able to apply what you have done. And in our case, we want to help students who study this course to better prepare for writing a thesis, because thesis work and research work is almost identical. It's almost similar in steps of doing research and steps of doing or writing a thesis is almost the same. That's why they require every graduate student to study research methodology. And have a watch with me. If you think that this is a time that we should go for a break, we can do that.
Preecha, before we break, this course is number 6.
651. 52.
Okay, research. And we have another course called 851.
What is that?
Thesis.
Okay.
Can you just online just make the difference between this course 652,
okay,
and the other course 851 thesis,
right,
for the sake of the recording?
Okay, good. 652 research methodology is the preparation for the 851. In other words, you study how to do research, how to write a thesis, and in 851 you actually write it. That's it. So without taking this course, you can write a thesis, but you will get confused in so many steps, and you might know where to start, how to form, or how to test the hypothesis. This course is preparing students for that course, who will be in actual writing, actual research, conducting for their study.
So the actual writing period, how does it differ from the research methodology period of study, in terms of weeks, in terms of months or years?
Okay. Research methodology is a 42 credit hour course, but thesis can be 1 year, 2 years, depends how hard you work, and how well you get along with your professor sometimes. Yes.
Okay.
I had that experience.
So it's not a matter of sitting in a class.
No. You are working on your own. But once in a while you can come and consult with your thesis advisor. Before we get to that point, we have to assign the thesis advisor to a student, which means that professor and the student will be working together toward the completion of the thesis of the student. Mostly one professor would have 3, 4, 5. 5 is almost the most. Sometimes 8. We call it advisees. That means that students were working with the advisor.
So it is possible then that our students may actually have in mind what they want to write.
Yes.
Before they take 652 research methodology.
It's possible. Yes, it's possible.
And rather than wait until the end of the 42 credit hours,
right,
and then try to think of,
right.
Whereas
there are some factors need to be taken into consideration. Like in my case, let me give my experience. When I went to Syracuse University, I have prepared in advance the research project that I want to use it as a thesis writing. I have the title. I even have the actual research work back up, because I work with the Chiang Mai University. So I'm so proud. I'm so comfortable. I think that I will finish the course very quickly. So I went to talk to my thesis advisor, and he didn't agree with my topic. He said, "Well, if you want to really do this, you have to find someone else. I'm not capable. I'm not knowledgeable enough to give you a sound advice. In other words, I'm not interested in your work." He didn't want to say that, but what shall I do? Either change the topic or change the advisor. Changing the advisor seemed to be faster in my thinking. So I go to different professor and they don't want to take me. Oh, Preecha, I have already 8, I have already 5, I have no time for you, things like that. So I have to come back to the old professor, original one. So, sir, I would be willing to change my topic. Yeah, and I have to do it from scratch again. And he said, well, in that case, it's okay. I can take you as my advisee. So I started to write, the statement of problems, doing some literature review, and try to form the hypothesis, and collecting data. Data is in Thailand. Flying from the US to Thailand to collect data is very expensive. So I contact my friend here in Chiang Mai University and to supply me with the data. Okay, everything seems to be fine. Praise the Lord for that. But the man moved to other university. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that? I thought, oh. But so I changed. No, I cannot. That's already 4 years in the US. I said, overstay. Well, sir, I would be very grateful if you can still help me as your thesis advisee, and then we can do advising or consulting over the phone or writing. People rarely use email at that time. Email is still very new. So he agreed to do that. So I was like an orphan, no advisor, but I just kept on doing it. Once in a while, I would call and consult with him. See, that's the student's life. It may not happen at King's College, but it can happen in any universities. Things happen. Professor got sick. He changed jobs. He got divorced. Has no mood to give you advice. That is the. Also, another thing is that the chemistry between the professor and the student is very crucial. If he or she doesn't like your face, then it's
This brings up the question that in the college, is there only one way to get this done? For example, you bring in a student, he qualifies through the courseware, and he does a comprehensive exam, he takes your class already, and he's ready to write the thesis. And then he looks for a thesis advisor.
Yes.
And then he finds one. And then he begins the journey of writing 1 year, 2 years of a thesis.
Yes.
So that is one route, and that is a traditional route.
That is normal route.
Normal route. Okay. Would the administration of the college or any college consider another way of doing things?
Like what?
Where a student already knows what he wants to write, and then approaches the university, then goes the other way around. That means you cannot enter a university without first approving your thesis.
Oh, okay.
To cut short the...
I see what you mean, but not so many students will be that well prepared.
But because
there might be some.
Because we are dealing with mainly second halfers, people in their second half of their life. They've had in half their life to think about things, and suddenly they realize, hey, I need certification, I need whatever, ordination, whatever. Who can I approach? And I do have a specialty already that I've been working on for many, many years and preaching on, and it's my favorite subject.
We use that as a screening interview question for the students at Chiang Mai University. When they come for interview, we would ask them any topic of thesis in mind that you might have right now. And if you do, just explain to us. And some students are well prepared, particularly those who are in the teaching profession, and they are well prepared, and other, like government officials and business people.
We have a rule in Singapore. Before you enter Malaysia in your car, you need to have 3/4 tank in your petrol tank. You cannot cross into Johor from Singapore empty.
Yeah. I noticed that.
You understand?
Yes.
So I'm thinking this way, before we take in a student, what if we have a 3/4 tank rule? He cannot come empty.
Okay.
He must prove to us first that he already has something in mind to write. How about that? Something to think about.
Yes.
Because it would mean it self-selects. It's self-organized.
Let me ask three of us here. You have anything in mind to write about? If I would ask a question like this for your thesis.
I always like to connect my faith to the roots of my faith.
Okay.
So that will be my approach.
Something Hebraic, something Israel, something like that, in that direction. Okay, good, great. At least that's a general direction. I mean, don't come in empty tank. Must have something. I don't know. Then it cannot be. Right. At least you have a general idea of where it's something to do with Jerusalem, Israel, Theopolitan vision. Well, so many things to do with your faith and your roots of the New Testament. Yes. At least something, right? Rather than zero. Then we cannot take them in. I think so. It's just a thought, just something to think about. Or that would mean that before they apply, they would have some time to think.
We can put this design from our part in the brochure, and
That's a question.
Student would know that if they want to enter King's College, they have to come prepared. Half a tank is good. Doesn't have to be
3/4.
3/4.
Okay, next.
But the reason why it is such a restriction.
Speaking to them,
But the reason why it's such a restriction is because they do not want the Singaporeans to come into Malaysia and take full tank.
that
of course, we're talking about SARS there, but
the logic is different.
It's the same idea. Yeah, correct.
You don't come to King's College to take everything.
Yeah,
but rather you
to give. Where do you give?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a. Okay, please let's do the survey first.
Actually, I'm thinking of what Dr. Preecha said a while ago about the logic. All man dies. Are mortals. But there is an exemption that in the part of the Bible that some of you here will not taste it.
Yes.
And I want to who are those in the Bible who did not taste it. Is really John the Baptist. I'm very Yeah, that's so in my mind. I don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
There's a sect that believes he hasn't died yet,
Alive.
and he's still alive somewhere in Nashville, Tennessee, or Kentucky, or something like that. Yeah, they all migrated to
Jesus
America.
told that in front of the platform.
Okay, yeah, we'll take that offline.
All right.
Anything on
This is question time, please.
maybe
Ask
any questions on the whole process? Or what do you think about that thought about students coming to the university with already pre-prepared something?
That is, I think, would apply to quite a lot of senior citizens, as you mentioned. Yeah, that's very true, because they will not come in empty. Definitely not. And so they would want to present their ideas and their thoughts. But it's a matter of guidance.
Yes.
And you not have had that kind of a systematic approach.
Mm.
Like you say, teachers have, because we had to do it from scratch.
Mm.
You know, even though our research may not be really deep, but we have done something like that. So we can have lots of things to write about, especially critical questions, issues in life, and that's a lot to go back on.
I used to teach in 2 or 3 Bible colleges in Thailand. I feel that the professor in the seminary are much higher than the professor in regular secular universities. They seem to have like a father's heart to the student. The grading system, the guidance through the research work is done in a very beautiful relationship fashion. Like in secular university, you don't get that kind of compassion from the professor. They are strictly professional.
I have an actual student in mind who has approached me from Singapore, and he's already got a doctorate degree, but he is looking to take our master's in theology. This is in entrepreneurship. And my approach would be to very simply send him a text message and ask him to write in answer to this question. Reflect on your own journey in academia or your own learning journey. What are the key areas of expertise you have developed over time? How did these areas come to be your specialization, and how do they inform your current research interests? These 10 questions were actually passed on to me from one of our thesis people, and in the previous CNX Accelerator. And she'll be joining us with tomorrow, I think. But it seems to me that you could do both routes, the traditional route and perhaps this route here, because the way that he answers this question will already tell me the preparedness and at what level is how much of his tank is full or empty, right?
What field of specialty he has for his doctorate?
Entrepreneurship, business. Yeah. Okay. So he's already ordained in non-Levitical ordination.
Okay.
But now he wants a certification, which I'm very happy to do. But let's So when I receive this answer, it's almost as though I can predict what is his quality of writing, just simply by the first question.
Okay.
Becomes the final exam, almost something like that.
There are some universities and colleges that offer what they call a thesis-only program, which means student doesn't have to take any coursework, just write one thesis and finish. Or maybe they would require him they would require him to read certain books and come, for a conference with the faculty or with the committee, thesis committee once in a while, and the rest of the time, student would have to produce their own thesis. The British system use a lot of this type. They study very few coursework, and they think, they research, and they write more. American is coursework focused. The students study a lot of coursework, and then for a thesis, it's only 12 credit hours, the most, the maximum. The advantage and disadvantages of these two systems quite clear. Like if I study in the US, when I come back to teach, I don't have to do anything. Just copy and paste. I just took what I studied and come back and teach at the university. And for the graduate from the British system, they have a hard time because they have to construct, what to teach and how the subject can be divided, because they have never studied before. They would be more analytical.
Research. You can take eschatology, or Pauline would like to write something about redemption. Those type would require different type of research. What I would like to share with you is purely the survey research or experimental research. Might touch some of the historical research that can be used in studying the scripture, and also the you may have heard what we call the future ethnographic future research. You want to know the future of Singapore society or the Thai society in the next 50 years, you cannot use this type of research that we are learning at the moment. We use another approach. We use another methodology called the EFR, ethnographic future research. The data collection method is so different. Data analysis is also different. It's just to alert you that there are so many different kinds of research that we can use, but mainly the one that is mostly used is the survey research, and then some experimental research. Then if you want to do these two types of research, you would need to learn some terminology, some techniques, and like sampling techniques, for instance. You cannot study a very large population, the whole country of Thailand, but you have to do some sampling, those type of things. So, but before we proceed to that part, I'd like to discuss with you a little bit about the role of AI in doing research. You see, in every kind of academic work, plagiarism is considered a serious, offense, a serious sin. If you do that, it would be very difficult to be forgiven, which means you just steal someone else's work and put it in your name without giving any credit, any citation. You make everyone think that this is your own work. This is called plagiarism. So in academic world, it is very serious. It is very dishonest. It is very I don't know what to say, but if you already been given a degree, they can withdraw your degree if they found out perhaps 10, 15 years after that. It happened to so many people. Not so many, but it happened to many people who did that. In my time of advising a thesis, I have come across one who just copied from another piece of work and put it in his name. When we read the whole thing, oh, this is an excellent job. It's the best. It's one of the best. And nobody knows. We just grant him a degree. And then we found out later that he copied it from one of the law schools in Bangkok. And then that student graduated 4 years ago. So we confront him, and sometimes we just say, well, what should we do in this case? And then we just ask the student to resign from the program. There's no record being made of this instance. So let's get back. What about AI? Can you use AI to do research for you? You just ask ChatGPT to come up with the research topic and ask him to, suggest the outlines and then complete it for you. And then you just sign your name and send it to the school. And the examining committee would read, oh, such a wonderful. But it's not your work.
You can't defend it with data.
This is not only for the thesis writing. It can happen to any subject that you teach, particularly online subject. So you see, problem with AI is that sometimes it generates an inaccurate answer for you, and you are not competent enough to know that this is incorrect. So you just accept it as suggested by the great friend of yours called AI. There's so many different AI platform right now that you can use besides the ChatGPT. I tried it once for the history of Thailand, and ChatGPT suggested all the wrong chronology or the wrong answer because they have a limited source or data. Yes, but what you can use is that you can use AI to help you. For example, if you want to study on this topic and you want to do the literature review, you want to find out how many people have done the same line of work before, and then that would be a great help if you can use the AI to help you. They can even summarize it for you, provided that you understand the original source of that piece of work. When you do the literature review, you are supposed to read those literature that are related to your work. If you didn't read at all, the AI did it for you, and they did a wonderful, summary of those texts. What would the school think about this? So many universities and colleges in the world right now are so worried about this situation. Some in Europe even try to prohibit students from using the AI, the ChatGPT, because they're very clever. They ask ChatGPT to take the bar exam in law school. They did better than the average score of the students in the class. So I don't know, what do you think? Any ideas? You cannot fight it. You cannot avoid it in the future. You have to live with it wisely, of course. But in our case, we have 10 courses, except a very original course like the modalities. You ask AI to come up with the summary of modalities, they won't be able to do it. I tried that already because modalities concept is new.
It's inaccurate as well.
It's inaccurate as well.
Asked to summarize a sentence, but he expanded, and then I look at every
See?
7 modalities, they are
Yeah.
inaccurate.
Yeah. You see,
Mix and match.
yeah, you are in a position to judge that it is inaccurate because you know the subject. You know the subject. I know the subject, so I know that this is wrong. This is not right. But in the case of the general students, they don't know which one is right, which one is correct, and that could be a real problem in our program.
What AI helps is ability to rephrase something that you try to express, but you don't have the words to it. So when they rephrase, you can say, "Oh, this is a better way of doing." Yeah. So I think it helps in that sense.
Okay, that's one way of living with AI. Use AI as a helper. Don't use AI to study it for you. Otherwise, you can earn a degree without knowing anything. You see?
You will be awarded to AI.
Yeah, and when you steal someone's work, it is bad enough. But now it is not about stealing. It is like you asking someone to do the job for you. Like you asking someone, you outsource to AI. That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. So what do you say, Nazelle? Yes.
Trend today, outsourcing.
Outsourcing is a trend. Yes, it's a trend. So this is what I would like to brainstorm and ask for all of your opinion. What would we do with the AI invasion into our academic world?
Just an aid.
Yes.
Just an aid. A tool, an aid.
Okay. And now they have a program called AI detectable. Because if you use AI, the professor would know right away, and they would detect that this is not you, this is not human, this is from AI. So they develop a program called AI detectable or something. You ask that to summarize it for you, and then AI cannot detect. And sometimes when you did such a good quality work, the professor may be suspicious in the first place that it may not be your own work. It happened with my grandson Paul. He has a friend who submitted a composition or a journal writing to the teacher, and the teacher said, no, it's not you using AI, don't fool me. But that friend said, no, I wrote it myself. It can happen. There's some Thai students study abroad, and then he answer in such a fanciful word in English and beautifully written, and then the professor said, no, it's not you. They don't have AI at that time. What they did was they asked the student to come and sit in a room and retake the exam again, and then people were watching, and he did exactly the same. There's some people who can do such a wonderful job like that, but my concern right now is about this problem, because I have been fooled before. You see, when we were in university, after my retirement, and we asked, before the student enter into the doctoral program, they have to take few tests. One of them is the language ability, and then we just honor system. We just leave the room, and the student would use a handful, come up with all of the dictionary and many translation. Google Translate can help you translate very beautifully. So that happened. Admission part, but study part can even be worse with the help of AI and with the students, being all over the world and doing online course. So I want to hear your opinion about this problem at the moment. Have you ever thought of that?
Dr. Preecha, I think this problem must be tackled together with another problem, and that is the fact that we have online training in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And the days are coming to an end where people would be willing to pay tuition fee to actually attend a face-to-face classroom
Mm-hmm.
if they were to be given an option to study remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they can study remotely opens up the issue of integrity.
Mm.
There wouldn't be this issue also in terms of integrity, or rather, there wouldn't be this issue of AI unless there is the opportunity to study remotely. As you said, if you take an exam in front of the teacher, where there's invigilation, then that's one that cuts down on the possibility of cheating.
Okay.
But when you have a student who's thousands of miles away in Africa or in the other ends of the earth, that necessarily means that new policies have to be in place, or a new understanding of AI. Because if you can have if you can have AI detection software, you can also develop anti AI
All right.
software. For sure. Everything's possible now. So the question then comes to is, what is education? Because you began your lecture this morning by looking at two positions of logic, a priori logic and a posteriori logic. And you talked about inductive style, a priori logic, and deductive, where you have a major premise and it leads to a deduction of truth. And that deduction then becomes, you can work backwards from that deduction to go back to your thesis or your premise. So when we're talking at graduate level, then the ability to work from a proposition, right? So the issue of a hypothesis or propositional hypothesis, are we discovering? It's the same question of what is math? Is math something that already exists, or is it something that we discover? And
we can only discover that which is already existed.
Correct. So is the process of higher education to discover something that already exists? So if that is the case, then can an argument be made that AI could be incorporated with
certain guidelines, just like a calculator for a
Mm.
mathematician.
Mm.
In those days, I'm sure 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when they developed a calculator and abacus, even before that, should we outlaw an abacus or should we outlaw a calculator?
No.
It would be almost ridiculous to say, oh, let's outlaw calculators but unless you're taking an arithmetic course, then that's a different story. But if you're taking a typical mathematics, a calculator is almost like a standard fare, right? So would we come to a place, coming back to my question is, will we come to a place where AI is standard fare? You're supposed to pay a service provider $450 per year for the service. It's a requirement of your course to be AI enabled. Otherwise, you cannot take this course.
Well, you see, it's a good question, but you see, you have to separate between learning and education. You see, some people can get education without learning anything. That is what I worried about. You see, particularly with the help of AI, they can get a degree without learning anything. And people are tempted to do things like this because it's easier, a lot easier for them to pass all the requirements. When we do it remotely, when we do it online, like 1,000 miles away from the school, we cannot deny AI, but I think the teacher or the professor can ask certain type of question that would allow, critical thinking to play the major part in the answer. That way, AI will not be of much help, because they are very good in detail. But when it comes to critical thinking, and then AI has limitation. Imagination has limitation. And if you ask AI to compose a new song, they can compose it for you, but it won't be a great song. It may be good enough, but in the education system, we found out that sometimes we teach students something that are not applicable in life. It's a useless learning for them. But sometimes people just want to get a degree, and even though they pay, high tuition fees to get a degree, they don't care much about learning. They say that they can learn later on after finishing the degree. That happens many times. So this is. I just want to raise the concern. It's not a major problem at the moment, but we should have concern over this issue because we want King's College to be a standard, higher education institute. If we don't maintain this level, and in the future people would say that, well, it's just a waste of time and things like that. The degree that I earn doesn't mean anything. We want King's College to be a prestigious institution that people can look up to. Even though we may produce small number of graduates, doesn't matter. But keep the standard high enough that we can be proud of. Don't let anyone, even AI, to destroy these ideas of the King's College.
Maybe from the very start. Sorry. Maybe from the very start, we need to create this culture of integrity in our virtual classroom. In our classroom, at the first start, we make it a culture of integrity, so that there's any form of dishonesty, it if we have developed that culture by heart, we learned it already from the start.
On the issue of integrity, I think that's a real issue of cheating and fraud, because other universities, and we've heard of horror stories, I won't mention countries, but where you can actually buy a person to take the exam for you, queue up, impersonate, and take an exam. And then there are other countries who specialize, and I won't mention names, who specialize in degree mills, fake degree. So integrity on both sides of the coin, the administration as well as the students. But I don't think that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the use, not the abuse of AI. There are many abuses in all kinds of abuses, but I think now we're talking about how can we maximize or optimize the tools that we're given. For example, in Israel, you can do surgery with your hand, or you can do robotic surgery. And now you can even turn the image 3D, look at the heart from here, from there, look at the brain from this angle, that angle, really helps the surgeon. Or you can not adopt this and don't use the gift of technology. So how do we use AI? And I think perhaps develop the university itself has to change, just like the Voice of Peace, the Voice of Peace founder. Just now we heard him speaking in Thai.
Oh, okay.
Interesting
Okay,
guy.
yeah.
He's a Westerner, but he speaks Thai
Yeah, he's
perfectly.
Danish. Yes.
Danish guy, right? And he said, what's their mission? It's not about better mics and better facility. It's actually teaching every Thai Jesus, right? Bringing Jesus to every Thai. So we have to clarify what the vision is of education in the first place, of King's College education in the first place, so that we don't get in a situation where many universities today are actually running from the technology instead of running to the technology. I think Dr. Preecha is an advanced thinker, so he's actually looking at ways how can we use technology to leverage on this tool as a tool. And so if that be the case, then the question is, for the professors, everyone has to change. We all have to devise a method that we are basically saying, go ahead and use AI. You use every tool if you can afford it, because not everybody can afford AI, right? Except for 1 or 2 questions, right? So go ahead and pay for AI. Get the best, absolute. Have whatever image help you can have, but frame the question differently, so that there's no way AI can, unless there's a human intelligence there, a higher intelligence, there's no way that AI can answer in that way. I think the technical term in ChatGPT that they use is the prompt, PROMPT. If we can prompt the student to give us something that the computer cannot give us, then we are going to be really giving value for money, because they will be paying for their education with us. So what value can we give if they're just putting in a prompt to an AI and then the AI is giving the answer? There's no value in that. So as a professor, we have to be, I think the whole industry, the whole education is now thinking very hard as to how to recalibrate ourselves post-COVID and post-ChatGPT. This is, in fact, perhaps the question of the century. So, a lot of answers, a lot of questions, but will produce some inquiry will produce some sort of answer as to the quality of the education, and then how do you deliver it in a way where the answer is not so easily you could prompt an answer from a machine and give you a standard answer. We want them to use tools, but how do we ourselves change? Instead of looking at the students, oh, the student is going to be cheating. No, what about us as a professor? How can we come up with a course that is going to give value beyond just whatever that the AI can give you? Yeah, and that comes in the stories, in the anecdotes, so much more.
I have seen one of the questions that the professor gave to the student that AI cannot tackle very easily. Something like, after you study this course, say economic development, after you have studied this course, can you come up with a new theory of economic development? AI would be no. And if you can come up with this new theory, you can be awarded Nobel Prize. A question like this that would help students to think and no way that a simple AI collection tools can produce a satisfactory answer to anyone. For example, if you're an engineer and you see Bangkok, there's a lot of flooding every year, in traffic jams. AI cannot give the answer to those problems in a meaningful way, of course, in a meaningful way. So this is the thing that we should alert ourselves. It will come. I'm sure it will come.
I think the example in the recent Hollywood uproar by writers who felt that their jobs were threatened by ChatGPT is actually quite infantile to me and immature, because a real writer would have a style that is unmistakable and all of your own.
Yeah.
But those half-rate, half-baked writers
would be
course,
very mechanical.
They would be in trouble. Sure. So the first thing I did, Dr. Preecha, when you gave us the outline, I ran through paragraph by paragraph all your topics on AI. That's the very first thing I did. And I hit the word simplify language so that I can understand. And it could simplify the whole course for me.
Yes.
But that is just a very rudimentary approach. Then I want to listen to your life experience, and so all of the stories and your experience, that cannot be replicated by any machine.
Yes.
So I want to get past the outline stage. I want to get past the basic sort of fishbone or backbone, spine, the outline of your. I want to get through that. Now I want to get to the meat. That I don't think the ChatGPT can do. But on the flip side of that, may I say that why I feel that a research facility like King's College, teaching or research institution, might want to invest in using AI is because, let's say, original ideas can actually be going into the learning cycle so that future generations, it's just like Wikipedia, right? If you don't go on there with the truth, then somebody else is going to go on there with
that's right. That's correct.
The lies. So we might as well dominate in that field too. And I think the Christian university would be very wrong for them to go backwards and backpedal on this issue of AI. I think we need to be smarter than just it's we're scared. No, that's really, we need to move very advanced, strategically reposition our education goals, not just to regurgitate a
Right.
set curriculum that was written 50 years ago. No, we ourselves have to put in the work now if we want students to have both the use of technology as well as creative thinking.
Okay.
Actually, Pastor, in our days, we are in the last days, the Lord is pouring out wisdom more than ever before. In dreams and everything, I really don't know, but you just pop up. You see it very clear in the dreams and you come up with another, with something different that the world cannot do. Solomon, he has the wisdom. And he says in Ecclesiastes 2, verse 11, I denied myself, nothing my eyes desired, denied to self. I refused my heart no pleasure. But yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless. Chasing after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun.
Okay.
So if we'll put that in our heart, what we labor for this world is nothing and meaningless. But we give all things give back to the glory of God. That whatever we do, it is for the glory of God and not for ourselves.
Okay.
Then everything we solve this kind of dishonesty and we focus on the value that God has given us.
Yeah, and so he warned us that beware of the writing of books that has no end, you see. And then I think it's about time to go down for lunch, and then because the technician might want to take a break for lunch also. You want to say something?
Can I just say, because
Yes.
Because it is exactly what I was feeling, not feeling, but it is this idea about having like Pastor G, Pastor Lian, we all have the download and right, what do you call it, not necessarily right, but the best approach to this particular idea of learning. And so it may become prescriptive that we specify things that students can do with much wisdom. Give them the proper guidelines. That's what we are saying.
Yeah.
Rather than just say, let them come up. They can come up with their own ideas. But it is good for us to give the best guidelines, the best prescription, and so to have meaningful outcomes, fruitful endeavors. Because I was telling Pauline just now, it's not about just knowledge or separated from experience, but the combination of knowledge that comes from God and from ourselves, plus their own experience, just like the way you were teaching. If you didn't bring in your own experience, we cannot understand as well as we would want to. So it enhances. And so this is what we need to impart to students. So she was saying, starting with culture of integrity. But this is something that already can only be in place if we, on our part, we do set the example. We all know that. And it's not just telling them about it, but set the example and give them that proper guideline. It's like saying what God is telling us to do and we should be doing it. It's back to the word of God. And so we bring that out rather than just be too random in allowing freedom of choice or whatever, so that they don't go wrong. I don't know, because there's too much in the world that is not quite right. So they are so influenced by everything around them and they can just get it all wrong. So to really narrow down the course of whatever they need to do. And so what you said about the guidance by a thesis professor or somebody is so important.
Yes.
But do we have that personnel, that, the people? God, only God. Yeah.
Okay. Who else? Yes, Lian, please.
I think it's like someone invented a car. I'm just using the car to get from place A to B. It's efficient for me, but I don't say that I designed the car, because I think, so as long as I don't say I designed this car to get me from this place to that, I just use the car, I think it's okay, because it helps me. Because if you look at it, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's already there. God has already created. And up to us to adapt and use it.
Exactly.
Why would I dig a well myself when there's machines to help me do it quicker and faster, right? But why would I design a whole irrigation when Israel has the best irrigation? We can just deploy it. So I think, but what they can't do is they contextualize to the ground environment of like a certain location, certain communities, and that intelligence comes from the person who implemented. So I think it is okay to use AI.
Yeah.
Because it helps, but then you have to verify because not everything they say is correct because they're.
I have nothing against AI. It's just only a concern of integrity on the part of the student, and probably on the part of the professor too. It's both sides.
I think we can safely assume going forward that regardless of whatever software that we use for anti-this and anti-that, we can safely assume in the future every student will be using AI.
Exactly.
We start with that premise. That is our hypothesis. Don't try to outlaw this thing. That is the hypothesis. And don't call it cheating. Don't call it fraud or don't call it plagiarism. Rather, start with that basis that every student will be using if it's available and if it's not illegal in a country, like no government is going to outlaw, all right?
The work of the
Yes,
person.
so it's like an encyclopedia, right? Here's, some people can afford an Encyclopedia Britannica and pay thousands of dollars for it. Now everything is online already,
Yes.
right? So we start with that major premise
Okay.
that AI will be a source of reference, especially for online students,
Yes.
because we may not have access to a library.
Plus Pastor
Right.
Daniel 4.
So even the accrediting agencies who require 150,000 volumes in an institution before they will accredit you, hello, that is all going up. That has to change. Even policies have to be rewritten. Now that so if you start with a major premise, then what now, I think what Dr. Preecha is saying is, what's the deduction? What can we deduce for students of King's College in the future? What's the deduction point here? The premise is they are already using it and will continue to use it, and it will get faster, smarter, more ubiquitous as the years go.
Yeah, let's continue this discussion over lunch. But I'd like to pose a question to everyone. Suppose you're asking a student a question and you ask him or her to write an answer, and he or she didn't want to do that, just put on ChatGPT and ChatGPT produce an answer. Your question can be answered instantly in perhaps 5 seconds, and then they submit that to you, and then you grade. No, this shouldn't be the case, because otherwise all of your students would turn to be AI. You have AI students, not the real student who are working in different fields in Southeast Asia or in Asia or whatsoever. We don't want that to happen. It is just a little concern, not a major problem right now.
I think it's perhaps the problem of the century for educationists. I would respond to that. I would respond that the question is now have to change. We can no longer use the questions we were asking before.
Exactly.
We have to now be smarter than the student, and we have to come out with questions that, yes, go ahead, use your AI.
Yeah.
But I want to see your creativity that no machine can produce.
That would be a very classic kind of classroom learning, but with an online. Mostly the question would be given in multiple choice, and then that analytical part is lost in the multiple choice, and it's not like in old school that professor used chalk and board, and in my time of study professor who use PowerPoint is looked down upon. It is those who just write on the board. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
But anyway, that is the way that to stimulate the student to think. Multiple choice, I don't have anything against multiple choice. It has its place, but in some like thesis writing cannot be done in a multiple choice fashion, right? You have to write. You have to have ideas behind your thesis.
And perhaps we have a course called CBAM. It's called Challenge-Based Agile Management. So the documentation of a project, such as going into a village and digging a well, that process is being documented. How do you engage the local population, the elders, the people, beneficiaries, and so on? That you cannot use AI. Well, go ahead and use AI.
I think we have to move downstairs because they are about to close this studio by 12 o'clock anyway. Okay. Shall we have a word of prayer? Pastor Gerard, please.
Okay. Well, Lord, we thank you for the greatest intelligence ever, the highest of all intelligence, that you are and we are made in your image and in the image of that intelligence, Lord. And help us, Lord, I pray, to break out of our conventions and our stereotypical thinking about education. If there's an answer, would you please reveal it to us? And this is we will make space, we will make room for you to speak. We will give space and we'll give priority to the answers that you give us concerning this sensitive topic of students' responses with using machine language learning. And we will be quick to give you all the praise, all the thanks, all the glory for your answer to us, Lord. We thank you, we bless you in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Okay, let's go down for lunch.